Hello and welcome to a bonus edition of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host, Tony Anderson. On this occasion, talk me through an utterly mesmerising evening in Grangemouth, where Falkirk, after 5,473 days without a seat at the top table in Scottish football, pulled up a throne, and any other major talking points in the Championship on its final evening. You know what? It's my mate. It's Craig G. Telfer. How we doing?
I'm good, Tony. I'm good. Thanks. Great to be seeing you. We're recording this at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, and you're the perfect person to wake up to.
Oh, I mean, that is the kindest thing anyone. And I even dressed appropriately for waking up with me. And you know what happens when the bodger and badger of the terrace get together. That's right. We go round to each other's houses, mash up tons of potatoes, lob them round the room and at each other before embarking on an adventure which involves going into a pub, playing Boys Will Be Boys by the Ordinary Boys over and over until the pub literally gets rid of the jukebox. But before we do that, Telfer, how are you and how much fun did you have last night?
Yeah, for those not listening, I attended the Falkirk Daft podcast live event at Behind the Wall in Falkirk Town Centre. Just right before their match against Hamilton Academical, and I got to say, man, I had a superb time last night. Although the boys in the Stenny group chat absolutely roasted me for pitching up at it. I've got, over the course of the season, John McNally and Ross Wayne that do the podcast have been invited on as a guest. We played them
as a heel. Let's be honest, you've been brought as a heel.
But we played them in the League Cup and the Challenge Cup. So I was invited on to preview the match with them, and they're nice guys. I'd only ever spoken to them via text and on Twitter, but it was great to actually meet them, and it's class talking to them as well. And the event was really good. It was myself, the pair of them, you and Cameron, the well-known radio DJ. It was the four of us were up on stage, and you and Cameron's certainly an interesting proposition to share a stage with. But it was really good being there, and even though it's probably if I die and go to hell, that's probably what it's going to be like, standing on a stage getting Falkirk songs sung at you. It was good, and it was great getting the chance to talk to the fans. Then I went back up the road and watched the game. So on the whole, it was and to be able to get a chance to talk about it as well, very interesting set of circumstances.
Looked very busy. Like just a little picture that you sent me, I thought it looked like it was absolutely rammed. 220,
I think it was their biggest audience yet.
And how were the arseholes before it? People must have been nervous.
You know something? I think this event had been booked. I'd been asked to go to, I think it was 6 or 7 weeks ago. It was asked, and this is a point where Falkirk were streaking away with the title. I think at one point, this point had a 7 or 8 point lead at the top of the table. And at that point, you're coming into the final third of the season, final quarter of the season. I think this is an unassailable lead for them. Obviously, throughout April, results haven't been great for Falkirk, and they've been very good for Livingston. And where I was expecting to pitch up and everyone just be like, yes, we're going away, trophy presentation, right, see you later. Everyone we're talking to was really, really nervous. Really, really nervous. And not in that sort of anxious, excited way, in a way where they're thinking, we haven't been playing well recently, we can fuck this up.
And they were the only ones that really had anything to lose. Obviously, Livingston always, Martindale in previous weeks had sort of given up.
Yeah.
Title. And I mean, that was referred to as mind games on the television last night. I was like, not everything's mind games. Sometimes when you're in the position that Livingston were in and how Falk had been playing and they had to get 3 points out of the last 3 or 4 games, I think you just tell the truth.
Yeah, I'd like to know what if John Martindale was mind games, John McGlynn was mind games when he comes, it looks like having a panic attack when he's speaking in front of everyone, he's doing all that.
Try to keep Martindale no calm, they'll no bother training so much. He's like, oh, he's fucking lost it. It's fine.
I think it was quite interesting though how there was at the event, it was interesting talking to people who were slightly, maybe a bit ITK about what was going on at Falkirk. And I think after the Thistle game, if you remember, John McGlynn didn't actually speak to the BBC because the players were kept in the changing room for a bit of time afterwards. And I think it was after the Wraith Rovers game. I think it was Scott Arfield had actually asked McGlynn and the rest of the coaching staff to leave the changing room so the players could sort it out amongst themselves. And obviously the next game after that was the Thistle game, so it didn't necessarily work out. But I think what was told in that game on the Friday, on the Saturday, and Scott, so this is probably where Scott Arfield is such a positive impact, not just on the pitch but off it as well. I think he arranged for the players to all go out for a big day out, just to relax and just to calm the nerves and just to to bring everyone back together and maybe make it fun again. Because I think it had been a lot of fun up until they started
to the
losing
finishing line.
games.
Yeah, it's like right to the finishing line. Yeah,
when everyone's getting a wee bit nervous, and I can understand why that is. It's a young group of players who are, when it comes to like this sort of thing, maybe haven't had to deal with these kind of potholes in their career before. So Arfield taking them away was a big thing, and it certainly relaxed them going into this match. And although it was a bit of a sticky start for them, after that opening 5-minute period, pretty much one-way traffic
for the rest of the 90 minutes. And you mentioned like how young the Falkirk team is, and obviously I watch it, but I'm still slightly more of an outsider than certainly you would be. And I loved it. I did skip over the game and go to the end of the game, just to mention it. Like with McGlynn with them, it's got such a nice vibe. Yeah. It's like and like how much when you see him in the background with the beers, and it's like these young kids all doing like dance moves, and they're all like completely different generations. I don't know, there's something really sweet about having John McGlynn, who's quite an awkward guy as it is like sort of like the sort of like caring uncle almost vibe.
You know something really interesting you say that, because in the second part of the Falkirk Daft Live event, it was Stephen McGinn was speaking at it. And Stephen McGinn, I've met Stephen McGinn a couple of times, and I've got to say I find him so interesting to listen to. And what I said to him last night is when he finished up, see, as a fan, right, you've got a rough idea as to how things work in football, just in terms of the dressing room, in terms of how players react to setbacks, in terms of like a squad full of different personalities. You've got an idea how that works, maybe from your professional environment when you're working in a team full of people, or just because you go to football a lot. See, actually talking to someone who is inside and somebody who knows how things work and can explain them in such a way. Stephen McGinn's amazing to listen to. He was a really, really good guest. And he was asked about John McGlynn, and he said that one of the big reasons for him going to Falkirk in the first place after they left Kilmarnock was the opportunity to work with John McGlynn. And he said McGlynn his Wraith Rovers teams were really good. They were really exciting and really quite difficult to play against. He wanted to find out, as he was moving into coaching, wanted to find out why they were difficult. And on top of that, he said like John McGlynn's he's a real players manager. And he said what he means by that, there are managers that he's worked with in the past that just really aren't interested in you as a person. Like you go in, you do your job, you head up the road, and that's it. The only thing that you've got in common with each other is the fact that you are working for the same company, effectively. Yeah. But McGlynn is really, really good at bringing everyone together and really get like building a harmonious team. And yes, it helps when you've won like 2 years. But he was talking about the one of the things, and not to just basically repeat what McGinn said, but he was talking about the standards at Falkirk at the time prior to McGlynn coming in. Stephen McGinn, I've got to watch on McGinn. But Stephen McGinn was saying that he remembered like when he was at his first spell at St Mirren at Falkirk, like where it was a big new stadium, new shiny stadium, where they had like loads of good young players coming in, and then him going back there a couple of years later, the stadium's a wee bit tired looking. It's more of a space for like the council take offices in there rather than it being like a football club. And standards had dipped with some maybe like older players who perhaps their heart wasn't necessarily in it. So it took a bit of time for McGlynn and McGinn to change the culture of the football club. But Steve McGinn was effusive in his praise for John McGlynn and what he's done at Falkirk. Because if you look at where Falkirk were to McGlynn coming in, obviously the season where they finished in second behind Dunfermline and lost out in the playoffs to Airdrie, that was embarrassing. That was a sore one. Since then, however, it has almost been like a vertical line, the direction that club have gone in. And there's good people working behind the scenes. Jamie Swinney, former CEO at Stennismuir, a great guy, and he deserves a lot of credit for the work that's gone there. But so does Paul McGlynn. So does John McGlynn and Paul Smith. God, there's too many mix in
Scotland, really.
In Scotland, aye. But that's it. Like John McGlynn's done an incredible job here, and as you say, that seeing him there, like slightly awkward with a trophy, having a lager with his cap off, it was that was quite touching. That was quite touching to see that.
See him like sort of peering in the background, and everyone's doing these mad sort of like Highland jigs, which give me the fear of God when they're all wearing football boots. And the beers everywhere. I'm like, put on normal shoes. There's going to be a problem.
It's a funny one because, like, I'll be honest, I celebrated Hamilton's goal. Like, when Aki's went up, I was proper celebrating it because I thought, this is going to be really funny. If Falkirk fuck this up, it's really funny. And they're a team, like, I quite like seeing them do badly. It's funny to me to see them badly. However, see the bit towards the end of the game when the fans have come out of the stand and they're all standing around the side of the pitch, and it looked like something you would see on like a Saturday amateurs game between two sort of rival sides in a cup final when all their mates have come along when they're that close to the pitch. That was fucking class. When that full-time whistle, when they ran onto the pitch and they were celebrating, and there's like thousands of people on that pitch, it looked absolutely amazing. It
was class just because like the excitement was able to build over time, and I'm quite glad. Now looking back, I'm glad how it happened. I'm glad that the whole of the country got a, oh my God, what's happening here? At the start when Aki scored. And you're like, I can't fucking believe that about, because you're thinking this is the bottle job. But I'm quite glad that then Falkirk, rather than just scrape over the line even, there was sort of, like you said, there was like a build up, and I don't think I've ever seen that before. I think that was quite a unique moment. I suppose it's the perfect sort of storm between a club of that size being down for so long, which means that when we get to this part, you're able to get 8,000 people at a game, which you wouldn't normally get for any other club at this level. So then you get that build-up when they're all going around the side, so you actually get to experience something unique. I've never seen a pitch invasion so well. So, like the timing of it coming, I know it's coming from 10 minutes before it happens. It was brilliant.
I would say that's something that Falkirk fans deserve a lot of credit for, because when you see teams fall in hard times, and my God, when they were in League One, Falkirk really did fall in some hard times. The support never really wavered for them. I think that's something they have got such a loyal family, such a large fan base as well. And it's a lot of people have said about them going into the Premiership. They'll be an asset for it because they've got a big support, and
where they're based, they'll bring big away supporters as well. Like the Falkirk Stadium's going to be rammed. I think it could be sold out every week, Falkirk Stadium, because they're on the crest of a wave at the moment. You know, back-to-back league titles. I think it was the first team since Gretna to go from the first division into the SPL. And that's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. That's totally manufactured.
That was heinous. Actually, I mean, I'll say, to be fair, James Grady scoring that late goal was it up at Dingwall? Yeah, it was. It was up at Dingwall, whereas St Johnstone were playing down. It doesn't matter. The circumstances for that were pretty good, but then when you pull back and say, hang a second, can Gretna afford to do this? No, is the answer. They can afford it. Whereas, you're right about Falkirk there, and when it came to the third goal went in after Ethan Ross, it wasn't Ethan Ross, it was Calvin Miller scored a lovely laser. That was laser precision goal. But then after that, it's like you're coming to the game, folk know what's happening, that we're going to be in the pitch for this, and everyone's just anticipating it. I mean, it was like, pitch invasions are a wee bit spontaneous. This was not spontaneous, but in a good way.
Yeah, because it was still done as a man like you would definitely be one. It was all done respectfully. Everyone was ready. Everyone went on. But we do like a pitch invasion, you know, like and especially when it's at that time of 15 years essentially building up to get in there. But it's always like, if you're a steward, you're like, can I just go home now? Is there a reason for me to be here? There is absolutely nothing I can do. There's no that I could be 50 stone of pure muscle and there'll still be absolutely nothing I can offer to this situation. It's an absolute waste of time. And the drama was quite good on the telly. I thought when they're trying to get the Don Kanemi to come along, I thought that was all quite a good laugh.
On the
telly, and they were taking ages to get there. And it's always funny seeing like broadcasters being forced to keep talking even though they've got nothing else to say, and it's completely unprepped.
It's like you're in the back of a car driving to Falkirk from Lithgow. Great.
And that's what they're trying to explain that to them. I will just tell them, hurry up then.
It was. I think in terms of there was a Falkirk fan I got talking to in behind the wall, and we were talking about league titles and we're comparing it to like Stennismuir winning the league, and for the first ever league title, you know, Stenny winning the league, it was all done quite straightforwardly. So we effectively won it with 9 games to go. I think
you nil-nilled it the last sort of like 6 weeks.
I think it was like a 17-point gap going into the final run of games, the final quarter, and you're thinking, there's nothing's going to happen here. It's at this stage here, no other team's been consistent other than Steny. It's all fine. And even though Steny didn't win any match between then and the season, it's like, it's fine. We're going to win. And I think that if you'd had to pick, you'd want it as fuss-free as possible. But the point I made to this guy was that see the pain that you've gone through over the last 5 matches and that uncertainty, see when you do win it, it'll make it all the more sweeter. And I'm sure it was for them.
And so, like, you were in the ground, Craig. So,
no, I wasn't in the ground.
Oh, you're not in the ground. Sorry, that's my apologies. I thought you'd went along.
No, no. I watched the game in the house.
Right, okay. So you went home after the Falkirk Daft and watched it, right? Okay.
Yes, I pretty much. Folk were asking me, have you got a ticket to the game? I was like, no, of course not. One of the things
that's what the vibe is. A man who's well-known Falkirk hater celebrating the Hamilton goal in the stadium. So I was like, I'd assume the ticket when they came through Falkirk Daft, so you'd be in the Falkirk end.
No, it was one of the things I said. Somebody asked me, you going to the game? And truthfully, if I had a ticket ahead of someone else who was a supporter and wanted to go, I'd have felt bad. That's not my place to go to these things. I'd have been interested to have gone to see it, but in those circumstances, it's let the people who really want to be there go.
I couldn't agree more, because this is like there'd be people that maybe they're maybe Falkirk adjacent fans or whatever, maybe slightly like maybe family members or whatever, maybe don't go every week, but I still would prefer them to get that opportunity for these big days. It's a big day for the town. It's not just about who's the Falkirk fans. After, like you said, after so much up. But let's touch on the game, Craig. Mm-hmm. So we did get a sort of Scott Robinson sort of trundler in the early minutes of the game, where everyone obviously thought, oh my God, this is happening.
I think it's important to say, Tony, like even before you actually talk about the game, like the context of the game, because I think if you were going to pick a game for Falkirk, this is the most straightforward game that you could have picked. You're taking on a team that are already relegated, a team who had the day previously had, and then fuck me, I feel so bad for Hamilton. Yeah. The fact that you've been told that, the team are going to be playing in Cumbernauld next season. They're moving away from Hamilton to play in Cumbernauld. The appeal for the 15-point deduction has been dismissed. So the team are relegated. A bunch of demotivated, demoralised players, playing in front of a tiny support that were put into a sliver of the what's the name of that stand? The South Stand, Kevin McCall stand. That one. Anyway, a tiny sliver into that stand, because effectively the ground was with like 92% Falkirk supporters. Yeah. Everything was pointing to a Falkirk win. And then you look at the Livingston side of things here. Livingston are playing against a team who are coming into it off the back of a decent win, knowing that they could get a victory. They finish in the top four. So it's difficult for Livingston, as straightforward as it could have come for Falkirk.
And this is what, again, that made it so funny at the start when that Aki's goal went in. I was on group chats going, you couldn't have asked for a more perfect situation, Falkirk. Like, I mean, this is like someone sitting down, Falkirk fan, writing out how they would like their last game of the season to go, and just making up stuff and adding it on. Yeah, they're going to lose the ground. Yeah, they're going to have to... just like, just making up shit to add on top to the club that they're going to play. The night before, points deduction. Yeah.
A Tottenham Hotspur style poisoned lasagna.
So, and it's like, and that's something I did want to mention, that I thought Aki's done great in terms of like being in that situation, and as I said, getting the gut punch like the night before as well, when they thought maybe we'll have something. And I'm not wanting to get into the rights or the wrongs of that. That's not for today. But like, they still have to go out there. You're still going to feel bad. These guys are just players. Most of this stuff, anything to do with this, isn't anything to do with them. They're just guys trying to earn their money and try to do their best for Hamilton Academical. And all the stuff off the field, they have absolutely zero control over. So, like, seeing guys like Lammy, McGowan over large periods of this game, they were absolutely like backs to the wall, chucking their bodies in front of everything. And I was impressed that it was that style of performance, because that was like, I thought it would either maybe you might get the lucky goal, like and maybe just think like Falkirk start missing chances, like what they've been doing in recent weeks, like Calvin Mirrell, which I'll come on to. His goal I thought was quite good, because he's had a bad couple of weeks in terms of really, really like egregious misses or whatever. And that's what I thought was doing. But with Accies, it was proper grit of the teeth. The anger that the anger that they've got. I feel pretty like John Rankin. I think he managed to get his team to sort of channel that. I saw Barjonas was everywhere trying again. It wasn't like the sexiest performance or whatever, but effort was definitely not something that could be labelled at that team.
I remember watching the match, I think it must have been about 11 minutes into the game, and thinking, if you were to take someone out off the street and say, like, here's the circumstance of the game, what minute of the game do you think this is? You'd probably say, like, this is probably about the 87th minute, and Falkirk are desperate to get you something from it. I was like, no, sir, this is 10 minutes into the match. It really had that feel, and I suppose that something we spoke about at the Falkirk Daft thing was about the state of the game, because effectively it's, with everyone's got smartphones now.
Yeah.
I think that everyone will be sitting watching this match and having an eye on their phone and seeing what's going on at Almonvale. And the crowd sometimes at Falkirk, I think what was I told, particularly in the main stand, it can be quite quiet. And it was this is the game where you need to be behind the players, regardless of what happens on the pitch. You need to give them the support and be singing for it. And it would have been very easy after that goal goes in to then suddenly be like, fuck, well, we need Thistle to do us a favour. And then you're just looking at your phone for the rest of the match. And that didn't happen. That happened, so credit to that. But on the point you're making about Hamilton's performance, gutsy is how I would describe it. And I don't mean that in a patronising way, because as you say, it would have been very easy to go into that game and thinking, well, this is the end of my season. A 50-50 ball comes. It's between you and Liam Henderson, who's absolutely scrapping for a point. Well, I'm not going to jump into that because I might get injured and that might fuck up my chances for a move in a couple of weeks' time. So, I thought they did well. They were just...
And you have to go to someone else's party off the back of the worst, couple of weeks of your life.
Exactly.
It's like something you just... There's no one there that wants to go to that, and unless you create the attitude that you just want to fuck the party up. That's the only...
Yeah. I suppose maybe that's... I don't know... I don't know what John Rankin said to the players beforehand, how he tried to motivate them. They were talking on Sports Scene about the professional pride. Mm-hmm. That's what I suppose that's a big thing. Ultimately, I think if you're a football player, you get that. It's like not just talent, but it's a mental thing as well.
Absolutely.
And see, like having a competitive streak. That helps you get to that level, and you still got, even if you're playing sort of like fag end championship football, you're ultimately there because you want to win a lot of the time. You hate losing, and that's a motivation. There's probably bonuses on the line. There's stuff like that.
And your back three, I mean, like Hendry's like a Hamilton stalwart, so you would expect that from him. I mean, Ricky Lammy's been a top flight player for a long period and is obviously a backstable. And Dylan McGowan, your assumption is that family really has that of them. So maybe
I like how you're saying it there about Ricky Lamy. Where's all the money coming from to pay these players? That's a story.
Either here or there. Ricky, I knew Ricky Lamy played, but I actually sat and watched the game. I was like, Ricky Lamy? When he made a massive block. It was like a great tackle when I think Gary Oliver was running onto a shot.
Yeah.
And like Lamy made the brilliant block. I was like, that was pretty high standards for the centre half. It's Ricky Lamy. Well, I wonder why. Right, okay, a guy that, half the Premiership would probably pick. But,
there's Charlie Telfer warming up.
Why is he on the bench?
But that's the story.
That's here or there. Yeah.
It's when you begin to scratch away at that, you're thinking, what's been going on here?
Maybe I can understand why they're having to swap stadiums and play. Which I was, the only in Scotland stuff is normally a nonsense. I think we might have scratched and found the one time the phrase two clubs swapping stadiums.
We haven't even mentioned Greenock Morton getting a transfer ban by FIFA.
That was great. It's like FIFA,
a lot happened last week.
Someone would have had to tell FIFA about that, because I don't think they were looking. So someone would have to grass them up. With things like that, I just do not believe for a second that FIFA are really looking into the business etiquette of Greenock Morton Football Club.
So Greenock Morton signed a player from Liverpool, and Liverpool waived the transfer fee, but there's a problem with the registration because the email went into like a junk folder. Ridiculous, man.
Yeah, you know what? You've been taking drugs again. I know you have. But yeah, let's go back to Falkirk. Okay, who do you think were the star performers on the day?
The easy one to pick is Ethan Ross. Ethan Ross is the easy one to pick. Like two I thought the first goal was from the free kick, well hit. But I remember even watching at the time thinking, fuck me, goalie.
Yeah. I mean, if that's all you have to do, like, you know, because where the ball's positioned and they say, oh, you have to get up and over. It's very difficult to get up and over there. He didn't bother with that. What he did was curl it round the wall and then just didn't do anything. It just made it go around the centre of the goal. If that's all you have to do, free kicks are going in constantly. Because the wall doesn't matter. You're just kicking it down the middle of the goal. And somehow the goalies managed to... And I felt for Linus, because Linus made two absolute world-class saves.
The save at the end of the game when it was 3-1. That's like David Seaman in the FA Cup semi-final against Sheffield United.
It was properly like he made one in the first half as well that looked really cool on the cameras. So I don't want to give him too much stick, but I just don't understand what his mindset is. He like steps to the right at some point and he gets himself in such a tiz that he manages to be trying to save a central shot full stretch and not getting it. It looked so weird when it hit the net, and I get massive for Falkirk at that point to get that break.
Because I was going to say, I mean, at that point, Falkirk were, as you mentioned, Falkirk were well on top. And it's, as you say, like, Falkirk were by far and away the better team here. Like, Falkirk were by far and away the better team here. Throughout pretty much, other than the opening, like, 5 minutes, Falkirk were the much better team here. And I think particularly when they were moving the ball out the wide areas and coming inside, and the wee touches and all that inside, it was just, like, as you mentioned there, like, Ricky Lamy and Dylan McGowan chucking themselves in front of the ball, and maybe actually chucking themselves in front of the ball and that desperate defend. That ultimately led to Ethan Ross's second goal, which we'll come on and touch on. See if that game had gone in at 1-0 at half time, everyone's feeling really nervous. I suppose it's coming in from Almonvale that Macaulay Tate has scored an own goal. I'd half an eye on that game on the laptop.
Don't have Jambles in your team when you're going for a league. Come on.
There you go.
Always going to end up like this.
David Martindale found out the hard way that's the case. But you see, you go and to suppose it doesn't really matter because then, because I keep forgetting there's like 2 games being played at the same time. It's not just a lot of the time, like say last week, for instance, Falkirk playing the Friday, Livingston are playing on a Saturday, so you know what needs to be done for it, but this was at the same time. So I say it goes in at 1-0 though, everyone's feeling quite nervous, and then the ground's a wee bit quiet, and then because I actually thought Hamilton started the second half quite well.
Yeah, that was the best they played, and they kept the ball. It wasn't just they were on top; they were actually keeping the ball. They took the sting out of Falkirk for a while, and were actually building themselves into actually having an impact on the game rather than just moments.
Yeah, I was quite impressed. And Barjonas is someone that you picked out. I think he's in an up and down season, but I thought he was pretty good here. And I think that certainly a lot of these Hamilton players, I imagine the ones that leave the club will have no bother finding other teams. I've often thought that about this Hamilton side. They're probably lesser than some of their parts. Some pretty big names in the team that you'd maybe expect a wee bit more from the whole. But the second goal came at a good time as well. And we mentioned there about like them trying too hard to defend. But I think it's Dylan McGowan's on his backside, and he heads the ball just in this bid to clear it. However, it just tees up perfectly for Ross to run onto about like 4 yards from goal and smash it into the top of the net. And that there at 2-1, even when I couldn't really see, I can't remember Nicky Hogarth having much to do in the game other than the save that he sort of teed up for Robinson right at the start of the match. But at that point, you're thinking they're not coming back. From this. This is Falkirk. The crowd. The fact that you've got like I say, 92% of the stadium are supporting you. They're generally playing quite well anyway. Yeah. It felt like a matter of time before they go on. And to answer the original question, Ethan Ross was the player that I thought was the man of the match.
With Dylan McGowan, it's like it's just that you think you've got to do something.
Yeah,
but you trying to header a ball on the ground with your neck, that ball's not going anywhere, man. Like you're not. As you said, the most you're doing is teeing up for someone. You're not actually benefiting anything, but I totally get it. It's like, this is how players behave when it comes to that point. You always feel like you've got to do something. You can't be seen not to do anything. The Aki's Daz will be delighted to see him do that. But the manager might be like, see, if you've got no way of actually manoeuvring the ball, probably don't
just leave it. Imagine you got like kicked in the throat as well.
Is it worth it? I'm going full circle, like telling them I'm really happy and I thought it was great of them to go. But maybe Dylan, like you do have a career to go to. You do have a holiday, your family. going throatless to Ibiza might not be that good.
The other guys I thought did well. I thought a lot of Falkirk's good stuff came down the right, and I thought Keelan Adams had a really good game. I've been so full of praise for this guy since he came into the team. And again, just to go back to the event, Stephen McGinn was asked about Keelan Adams, because if you remember, Adams actually joined Falkirk in the January of last season, but stayed out on loan at Cumbernauld Colts. And Stephen McGinn was saying that he'd seen Adams at training, and he was doing like it was at the side of the pitch or something. He was doing like runs back and forward, and he was saying, this guy looks the part. He said he's got a big, strong build, athletic boy, fast. He said he's really fast. And he said to John McGlynn, he said, what am I missing here? And John McGlynn's like, Stephen, I think I've found one. And ultimately he has. And there's something else that Stephen McGinn said at that event. He was saying that he went for it was like Berwick Rangers versus Celtic B. He went and watched it because his St Mirren team were taking on Celtic, something like that. He went down as a scouting mission, and he went there. John McGlynn was there just watching the match, and it was the idea that McGlynn was thinking, maybe there's another player down here that hasn't been picked up. Maybe there's another Keelan Adams that we can find here. And again, it just goes to show that McGlynn's dedication to the game, where he's just pitching up at Berwick versus Celtic B. What are the chances of finding a Keelan Adams in Berwick? Probably very little, probably very slim. These guys only come around once every 3 or 4 years. But the fact that you can take that chance in it just shows his dedication to Falkirk. But I thought Adams was class. It was a game. I've compared Adams to Andy Robertson, and the way he plays is like bombing up and down, ceaseless energy. Really good at hitting the byline. Really good at building that interplay down the right hand side, the likes of Miller and Ross. And I thought he was really good here. I thought he was really good. I think he said his form hasn't been quite as strong as it was earlier in the season.
Yeah, the first half of the season, you were like properly off the chart stuff when you were talking. But
what I would say is, as a guy who has stepped up from playing like university football, Lowland League football. In fact, he was playing like West of Scotland, like 3rd and 4th division with Glasgow University. It's like a one step up amateur football. Playing at that level to then move up to like a full-time team that are gunning for promotion and forward. It's a huge step up. And so you allow for, once that excitement builds, you're allowed to have a dip. Very few players like Lamine Yamal, who was just Keelan Adams isn't Lamine Yamal.
I'm the best. Just turn up. I'm the best. Give me the ball. I'm the best.
You're entitled to have your form's got to fluctuate as you develop and your body develops to like training and the rigours of playing.
Being a full-time
player. But he's a guy that'll definitely kick on. He's not going to be at Falkirk long. I can see him having like one more. If he leaves Falkirk in the summer, he'll make the club a lot of money. I can see him sticking around for another season and then moving on. I actually think that a team like Rangers should be taking a look at him for right back. I think
that's in the position they need to fill as well.
Position need to fill, and you've got a guy there who is.
And it's low risk for them. It'll be relative buttons,
you pay Falkirk like, I don't know, £200,000 and a signing on fee. He's under contract. He's got 2 years left in his contract, but you pay him and stick a signing on fee.
You do it now, because if he plays well in the Scottish Premiership, then suddenly we go into millions and we go into other teams want him. And
exactly.
You're fighting. This is the thing about that. And this is the kind of things that Rangers should do. This is like quite an obvious. And I think loads of clubs like Hibs, Hearts, Rangers, for the way I've seen them a few times and listened to you, it's so low risk.
Yeah.
The fact he's been able to jump that much already makes you think, well, that final step is less than the step he's already just done. You're less of a worry.
Because it's a big thing where I'm sure we've spoken about it before. I know we're going off on it. That's the good fun about these podcasts. You can go off in tangents. I remember talking to a player at an event, and he'd moved from St Johnstone to Hibs, and I asked like, what's his step up? And he said, see, at St Johnstone, you get a wee degree of pressure from it, because you're going from like a team where the pressure comes from yourself and the pressure comes from the rest of your teammates, and you do get a wee bit of it from the stands.
The local press. That's
when you move up to a team like Hibernian. Suddenly it's like, whoa, this is a big team. The stands are full most weeks. If you're not doing well, folk will let you know. And it's you'll know better than anyone else. But it's how people deal with that. And you don't think it's that big a step to move to a team like from St Johnstone to Hibs. But it's huge. Like mentally, it is huge. And I think what I was going to say for Adams, to have gone from effectively playing for Cumbernauld Colts, you'd be playing in front of like fuck all people every week, to go to a team like Falkirk where there is an expectation. I mean, you're going there at a good time as well, where the fans are completely in love with the manager and the group of players and so on. So you're coming to a really positive environment, but there is a step up in pressure for you to be playing in front of a big support every week. So he showed he can do that, and I'd be interested to see if he can make that step again. But that's something that Falkirk might need to worry about the next months or maybe a year from now.
And then we had, as I said, the Calvin Miller, brilliant goal. Exactly what you want at that time. You've still got nerves. And it's just one player, arguably one of their best performers of the season, just taking that responsibility, showing the quality at that time. I was sitting there like, I felt relief. Like when it went in, even though like I didn't have any skin in the game. So I could totally understand what that would have felt like. And for him just to take it, like cut inside, go back on the outside, and then laser it right into that bottom corner, like off the post. And I was quite pleased for him because he's had such a brilliant season. But like I said, in recent weeks, he's made some bad decisions. Yeah. The goal, and it's like, you don't want that to be remembered. So I'm glad that someone like he's the one who he plays the right guy to put the ice.
Probably, You're right in terms of what you say there, because the title, had he scored against Ayr United, that miss, 2-0, we wouldn't be at this stage. Yeah. He scores against Partick Thistle when he had the chance, or certainly he could have slipped in Dylan Tate to finish against Partick Thistle. We're not at this stage. You know, you don't know the circumstances. Like, Falkirk could have gone on to win that game at Thistle, 4-1, down to 10 men at that point. You set him up, you win 4-1. But so for him to basically confirm it, because I didn't think the Wazakis were going to come back into it, but you never know if they get a corner or something like that and are able to score from it. The fact that it was him who was able to do it is class, because he's been such an important player for Falkirk over the past 2 seasons. Someone who I think has always been quite talented. I remember hearing the name when he was coming through at Celtic and being told this guy's absolutely dynamite. But maybe moves that haven't worked out, and you've got to take, like, dropping into League One. Imagine for some players that might be a bit embarrassing having to do that. But Miller's in a place now where he can go and kick on at Falkirk, and who knows, maybe go on and play like further up the food chain, because he has shown over the course of the past 2 years that he's a really, really talented player.
I really hope that we, at least even till January, get to see that Falkirk right-hand side in the top flight, just because let's say Falkirk are going to bring a lot, but in terms of the makeup of the team, that's the bit you're like interested in. That's the bit where you're like, right, this looks... They too could make the step up. They too could cause a lot of bother for other teams. And I just hope that the team that comes up gets to at least hold on to that for a while. We want to see how that develops as fans in there.
The worry though, Tony, is, and this is, I'm glad we were able to come on and talk about this, because Falkirk's issue this season is they've been excellent against the teams lower down the food chain. Morton, Queen's Park, Airdrie, Ackies. They haven't been that good against Livingston, Thistle, Ayr United. So I think that was a concern, was that I think that Falkirk were probably going to go... I sincerely believe Falkirk would only have been promoted by winning the league. I think if they'd finished second, and the circumstances around the club would have changed, gone from we're squishing this to being like, holy fuck, how we chucked this away.
Even a bigger picture based on their whole season, they would.
I suppose though, if you finish in second, you've got a break to get all that out of your system and go. It's not as if you're going from we fucked this and you've got a game the next week. You've got a bit of a break. However, I think that's the worry I would have for Falkirk is how they acquit themselves next season. It's something we said, Sean and I spoke about almost a year ago when we did the big lower league podcast, is you've got a bunch of players there who had never really done it consistently at championship level. Guys like Ross McKeever, Aidan Nisbet, Calvin Miller, I think girls like Liam Henderson. I know he'd done it for Arbroath, but anyway, a lot of guys there who had played at championship level but never really been successful at it. So you've got all these guys like at the same time moving up a level. How would they acquit themselves? And I think that was a legitimate question to ask about how Falkirk would get on. They took to it superbly though. Yeah, they go back-to-back titles. Obviously they could do it superbly. I do think though, I mean, it's not like I'm saying anything massive. There is I think perhaps of all the gulfs between the divisions in the SPFL, the one between the Premiership and the Championship is the most pronounced. And I think that Falkirk will need to sign about 6 or 7 players to be able to acquit themselves there. I do think so.
Yeah, right, okay. I mean, I don't want to pick out individuals, but obviously you're bringing on Barney Stewart up front after an hour. You know, that's not, he's not, that's a guy who's obviously being used, and this is a guy coming from, like, when
but see, Tony,
the football. But
there was a bit in that game where he got played through. I can't quite remember. I think it was at 2-1. He got played through, and it was a sort of thing where you want to take it onto your stride. See if you're running onto it, and just bring away where you can sweep the ball in front of you, and you're running onto it. And his touch was a wee bit clumsy, and he had to basically like adjust his run, and that allowed the Hamilton players to come back in. And I remember at the time watching it, telling me like, man, I don't think Barney Stewart will be playing Premiership football next season. I think Barney Stewart will be given a loan to Queen of the South for the season, a loan to Airdrieonians, where he'll play every single week to toughen him up and get him ready for it, because there's definitely something there. He's a big handful of a boy. I think anyone called Barney in Scotland is going to be like a big tough boy. He's definitely got something about him, but he's raw and he's a bit uncoordinated.
Sounds like a character from Of Mice and Men.
And it was when I saw that touch last night. I mean, I think everyone knows that he's a bit of a project player. I hate using that term, but do you know what I mean?
I mean, if you're picking someone from where he was, like, there's no other way of referring to them.
And seeing that touch, I remember thinking, I think there was a chance as well that he
first module of the project.
Learn to
kicking
control
the ball in front of
you. So I think that's something to. I think that Ross McKeever is. I think that he hasn't able to. A lot of the players hit the ground running from moving from League One to the Championship. I don't think Ross McKeever's done that. I think we described him as probably Falkirk's most important player. The way he would play in that set, not necessarily score you loads of goals, but be able to play with his back to goal, bring in those number 10s and the wingers into play. He's not been as good. And you've got guys like that are under contract, like Gary Oliver's under contract. I think, was it the last time he played top flight football for Hearts? The season they went down administration a long time ago. Tom Lang's got a 2-year contract. I'm not sure he's quite good enough for top flight football. So it's an interesting, but it's a tough one there, Tony, because you want to like reward the players and keep that team spirit together, because that's so important, and that has helped Falkirk get obviously quality, good management, but team spirit's been important. You don't just want to break that up for the sake of bringing in guys like, I don't know, Barry Douglas off the top of my head, someone like that
of the Scottish Premiership.
Take a punt on Kyle McGuinness, because everyone wants to just he's injury prone, but if we can keep him free from injuries, we'll be the team that figures it out. You don't want to do that. So it's a difficult thing. That's a difficult thing to do, but I do think that's something that Falkirk need to address. The good thing is, though, I'm sure that they've probably been working since about February, maybe even earlier than that, probably getting players lined up for next season, and now they know where they are. They can be like, we're playing Premiership football. Do you want to sign for us?
And we've got big crowds as well. It's like big you're not crowds. I think that might be big even for like markets like being able to go down to the English lower leagues, which I
don't know, man. Falkirk have tried that in the past with the Paul Hartley
mobile
Ricky Mitchell experiment, and that did
like
not...
having the big crowds, I think, does help them going round and hawking round agents on top of like the TV stuff. I've been able to maybe bring in a slightly higher caliber player than what they maybe would have.
It was easy to laugh. John McGlown's interview, I think it was in the BBC earlier in the week, he was talking about the club's potential, and he was talking about like top 6 and getting
European
into Europe.
Mm-hmm.
He's not out with the realms of possibility.
There's no people laughed at that, but St Johnstone done it loads of times.
St Johnstone have done it. I mean, St Mirren are a bigger club. St Mirren, but in terms of the tiers, St Mirren are probably like a wee step above Falkirk in terms of size of the club.
Inverness Caledonian bloody Thistle done it and won a cup. So I mean, you can't tell me it's impossible.
It's not impossible. I mean, Falkirk have been in Europe before. I do think there is a lot of potential at Falkirk to be like the biggest wee club in Scotland. And that's not dismissive. We all know, where we are in the food chain. We all know our position in the food chain. Falkirk know they're probably for the last 15 years, maybe at a level that they don't feel they should be at. But I think that now, if they can go up and they can stay up, I think it's a big if, because like I say, it's the gap between the divisions is profound, and Falkirk haven't been that great against the bigger teams in the division and the Championship this season. If they go up and they can stay up, consolidate and kick on.
Shoot prediction. Are they staying up?
No.
I don't
think it's a no unless
Yeah, you revisit that when we do. I suppose you don't get to talk about them on your huge podcast.
It's, this will be the first time ever since I've been involved with the Terrace. I'll not be able to talk about Falkirk.
There'll be special dispensation made.
I might get wheeled out for the very first episode just to talk a wee bit about them. Basically, it's like when a kid goes from primary school to high school, they get like an induction day. That'll be me talking about Falkirk. Me and Fowler going up to talk about them, and then that's it, waving them away at the gates. See you next season. But no, it's a note at the moment. But this is just based on the current team. I don't know what John McGlynn's got lined up. There'll be people who watch Falkirk a lot more than me that are even in the pub last night when I was sitting with John and Ross and a couple of their mates, we were talking about like next season. Even they were disagreeing on the kind of players that they need to address. Is Brad Spencer good enough for the top flight? Or is Brad Spencer good at a level where he's perhaps afforded a bit more time on the ball? Because in the top flight, I mean, you'll know better than else, it is very frantic, very, very fast. And if you take that one extra touch, boom, somebody's going to be on top of you. So these are all things that need to be factored in. Right,
I think we'll barely be able to talk about any other thing that happened in the Championship, and that's the way it should be because it's only 45 minutes. Obviously, Raith Rovers disappointed after winning 5-1 away at Queen's Park, which is a brilliant performance, one of the best of their season. And that's maybe the sad thing for Raith Rovers is that comes right at the crunch, and then if they manage to follow into, if Livingston do manage to get a goal, they'd be followed into the playoffs. This team maybe is, as the children would say, are cooking at the right time.
I think that Sean McGuigan said it was the Neil Collins experiment for the first part of the season
cost them.
Just not working, it cost them. And I think that Barry Robson is doing something pretty good at the Rovers. I think a few people might have been sceptical at the start, given he talks about like the High Achievement podcast.
Loves fucking war.
When you hear that sort of thing, you're like sceptical. And the fact that Aberdeen, his Aberdeen team weren't that great once he was given the job on a permanent basis. It was hard. I mean, it was hard not to at the time, to be honest, given the results.
I've won 7 games 1-0. What a unit.
This has been opposed upon me. This has been opposed upon me. But then you see he's actually pretty good in Rovers. So if you're a Rovers fan, disappointed with how the season's gone.
And Robson's developing, which I think he maybe wasn't the stalwart of this league, but you can see he's learning over time. And I think that's the most important thing when managers are from the outside aren't maybe lower league Scottish football sort of managers off the beaten track. So it's good to see that he's that he's developed over time. And congratulations to Partick Thistle.
Yeah, there's that thing as well. I mean, that's been a pretty difficult campaign for them as well, with Chris Doolan leaving and a bit of turmoil like behind the scenes there, and the change of managers.
Graham to do literally everything.
Brian Graham, effectively. I got quite the idea you go to Thistle and put your money at the gate. It's Brian Graham that's giving you your change.
Painting the lines at the side like
that. But there's all that there, and then you've got like Morton finishing in like 6th place again.
All roads lead to the same place.
You know, next season, like what's going to happen with Queen's Park? Like abysmal end to the campaign, absolutely abysmal end, and the academy being cut back to they had academy ages, I think from like single digit ages all the way up to 19s. Now I think it's only like 17s and 19s now, which is a shame. And I think that's the criticism, like for Willie Haughey being such a passionate of grassroots Scottish football and youth development. Why are you withdrawing your funding of these laddies at Queen's Park? Like it does,
doesn't add up to what you're saying. And then we've got the Neil Lennon experiment. Who knows?
The easiest money anyone's made all season. Easiest money. As soon as you say, Hamilton have a points deduction, can I get my £100,000, please?
I'll stay around if you want, but I could just go. And it'll be interesting to see if they decide to take him on, because it was such a mixed bag, really, that he's not like really put his hat in the ring as much as what you would have maybe expected.
I think that the Dunfermline
a Neil Lennon team playing without pressure is just not going to work. He'd be like a fart in a trance, no idea what to do.
I think that with Neil Lennon and Dunfermline, if they can, I mean, I suppose if you can afford to pay him £100,000 bonus, then you can maybe afford to negotiate a contract with him. But I think that Dunfermline, similar to Falkirk, big team Dunfermline, and on a day when Dunfermline are doing well, as we saw and when they were winning League One, if they're doing well, the folk will come out and support them.
Because they're like the next club, essentially, that you would have said they will have a Falkirk season one day. It's just about how long are we still going to be left to wait for them to action that.
And I suppose the other team talk about is Airdrieonians, although that again their season kind of flatlined a wee bit as well. I think that there was points where I maybe even fancied them finishing in 8th place, given how well the form was. But the point is about having a season. If you have such a bad start to it, you give yourself no margin.
Really?
You give yourself absolutely. When they actually like middle of January when they actually began to look.
Right, I'll start playing now.
Yeah, but you give yourself no margin of error for that, and ultimately, while the season, like the second half was good, no margin for error. But I would fancy them to stay up in the playoffs. Depending who they take. I mean, it could be if it's Stennismuir or Alloa they're playing, whoever finishes in 4th. You'd fancy them to beat either of them from League 2. We'll find out from League 1. Sorry, we'll find out later today.
And that brings me on to say that obviously we will have coverage continuing on the Tennis Scottish Football podcast for all the playoffs. They will be mixed, however, between main shows and Patreon. So if you want to follow Sean McGuigan and Craig G. Telfer and possibly Fraser Murray, Sean Eldebrand talking.
Fraser Murray?
Fraser Murray, sorry.
Yes, we're getting the Kilmarnock attacker is coming in just to talk to us about the playoffs as well.
Playing in the playoffs. If you want to follow all that, please, if you even just a £2 a month tier, you'll be able to follow all the premium lower league Scottish football content that the Tennis Scottish Football and the aforementioned men will continue to bring, and we'll finish the season soon enough in the Scottish Premiership. We can all get on with our lives. So
I've just realised, Tori, the worst thing about this, I need to start working on the big lower league preview.
Already? Yeah, it
never ends.
Already.
It never ends. It never ends. Fucking hell. I'll need to start working on that. I'll probably do that at some point over the bank holiday.
We need the end of season notes to set up there.
That's it. Because
every team, the context for everyone before they move in.
Every team got a wee intro. You'd have this huge Word document that says, "Oh, they signed a boy for Liverpool. That's interesting." And put that in there.
There we go. Right, so please join us. If you are a Scottish Lower League football fan, there is literally nowhere else to get your fix. So thanks very much for today, Telfer. That was good fun. Thanks.
That was good. That was good. I think we packed in a lot there. Is this a bonus episode? Is this going out in the main feed?
I think it's going out in the main feed as far as I'm aware.
Yeah,
I think
I know you introduced it as a bonus episode, but fine.
And then just Fowler. So Fowler, he'll be like a bit more work for you. 50 minutes. Sorry. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and everyone. And I'll let Telfer to tell you to enjoy your football.
Yeah. Enjoy your football. But unlike that Falkirk fan who took a selfie in front of the Hamilton fan and said, "Yous are going down," please do so respectfully. That was out of line. That was bang out of order.
I liked seeing the Falkirk fan down the front when they scored the equaliser doing the point into the temple. The Falkirk. I love it, man. It's just they're all the same. It's just brain rot from watching too much football. That's all it is. You just start literally behaving like Jurgen Klopp. Like, you're just a fan. There are no. What do you think's happening? Ethan Ross has scored. He looks into the crowd. He's getting excited. He's like, actually, no, everyone back in position. Like, you enjoy the moment. Don't worry about their mindset. Is what I would say. Cheers.